Hello everyone, Blackjack here. Um, it's 9 a.m. If you know my sleep schedule, this is basically the middle of the night for me. I've been up for a few hours, and I haven't been getting much sleep at all lately. Less than usual. You already know I don't get a whole lot. And a big reason for it lately is because there's been a targeted harassment campaign against me on Twitter. I'm in Pokemon roleplay, and people have been banning me, blocking me. Um, I was removed from a few Discords, although one of them was from before this. It was for asking if somebody had received an application for an event. I probably wouldn't have been able to participate in it anyway because of what happened a few days later. What happened a few days later was there was an account that showed up that was open to have some lewd roleplay, and they had a kink list that was like a mile long. And apparently the thing that happened is that the site they had used to fill out the checklist is apparently notoriously hard to use, and other people were even agreeing that it's hard to use, which is how I know. But there was a hate campaign against them because one of the things that was on there was underage. And the apparently that made them a pedophile, even though one, it was a mistake, and two, it isn't real. And I pointed out it isn't real, and everything switched to me. Now, you guys know me. I mean, I'm asexual. I don't have sexual feelings for anybody. And the thought that people have them for children is disgusting to me. But I also think that through fiction, we can explore topics that are, in fact, abhorrent in the real world. Apparently, thinking this somehow makes me a pedophile. I've literally been called that multiple times. I've been referred to as a predator. I've been called an enabler. I cannot fathom what is going through people's heads. They decry depictions of fictional violence and then literally threaten me in real life. I have gotten death threats. Somebody told me they wanted to break my collarbone. Someone just, there were all these. It's ridiculous. They'll condemn fiction and be perfectly fine with threatening an actual person. And that's messed up. They prioritize fiction above reality. It's like, yeah, somebody tagged my work in a thread because I did reveal where I worked because I wanted people to come there and speak with me. And I'm not about to give out my home address. I told people, come and talk to me directly. The phrase I used was come say it to my face, which is apparently fighting words. I don't know how. It literally means come say it to my face. And someone took that, tagged the museum, and told them that I was telling people to go there for a fight. The museum actually put security into this. I talked to my boss. He talked to me. He asked me to come down to his office. First thing he asked me, though, was, do you feel safe? So that's good. I'm not actually in any trouble, but we went over this long code of conduct for how museum employees should act online when discussing the museum. Also, that's not a wine glass behind me. I drank soda out of that. Just in case you're wondering about my capacities right now. If I'm screwing up on anything, it's because I've got maybe a couple hours sleep. But anyway, we went over the code of conduct, and I don't believe that I broke any of the actual rules. We went over point by point, and I was explaining to him why I don't think that I broke any of them. I never claimed to represent the museum. He was saying that I had to make it clear that I was only speaking for myself, but all I said was I work at this museum. I never said that I spoke for anybody but myself. So, how anyone could come to that conclusion was beyond me. He was saying he was worried that someone might show up with a weapon or something, which, I mean, okay, it's a valid concern. It could happen, but at the same time, I also think it's a little paranoid. I would be very just. It's so out of the realm of possibility to me. It's like being concerned that somebody could drive a car through the front door. I mean, there are steps, but they're not very big. Uh, and it's one of those things that could happen, but somebody in that situation, I think, would only want to be targeting me. And I did think of that as a serious threat, but I felt that that was more likely to happen at my house. I mean, at work, we have security guards. I thought they'd show up, try to make a threat against me, and get kicked out, probably arrested by like the 6 security guards that always hang out in the lobby. And then probably more rushing in from the side. But I was much more concerned about my house. I was worried that while I was gone, that somebody would try to break in and harm my birds. I told my dad I didn't know if I should have him pick the birds up or not. So it drove me nuts that the buses were late and it took me forever to get home. They were okay. The birds were fine. Nothing happened with the house. I just doing it again, taking my glasses off is. But anyway, though, my whole point through this whole thing has been that through fiction, we should be allowed to explore abhorrent topics without it being seen as endorsement, no matter how it's presented in the work. People need to have their own judgment and tell right from wrong. It's not the fault of an author if somebody gets it into their head that something in a fictional work that's, again, abhorrent is somehow okay to do just because they saw it in a fictional work. That's not the author's fault if that happens. We're supposed to develop the ability to tell fact from fiction around the age of 7. And you have these full adults who are putting all this emphasis on, like, oh, you can't depict this fictional violence. We'll beat you up if you do. I mean, honestly, that's telling actual survivors that what they went through is exactly the same as something that literally never happened to someone that never existed. And that's horrible. Why would you do that? Why would you want to equate fiction with an actual crime? Like, why would you want to say that they're interchangeable? People told me that this is literally fucking children or fucking a literal child. It's like, no, it's not a literal child. It's a literary child. One that never existed. Obviously, if someone is into this shit in real life, you need help. You know? You seriously need help. All right? I mean, I do support non-offenders in getting help, the same as I would with any other mentally ill person, because that's what pedophilia is. It's a mental illness. But, if you are an offender, I'm coming for you. I got a baseball bat. I know where to get some barbed wire. Seriously, I will do bodily harm to someone who harms actual children or other adults. Even if that person is a child, if they hurt another child, I am coming for them. But, depicting things in fiction, again, is not an endorsement of real life. People depict genocide, mass warfare, murder, rape, which is, by the way, a common sexual kink, is a rape fetish. It does not mean that they're endorsing a crime in real life. People can enact what they want. They're actors playing a role, even if it's just, between them and their bedrooms. It doesn't mean that you're going to be into that in real life just because you play something out, or just because you write something, or just because you draw something. And, people draw and write horrific things all the time, is my entire point, and they are not seen as endorsing them. Until it gets to this subject, then suddenly it means I must be doing this in real life. It means I must be into actual kids or whatever the bullshit. And that is disgusting. We have seen throughout history what happens when people try to censor freedom of expression. It never stops at one thing. Okay? To get political here, that's why I could never vote for Hillary Clinton. I did vote in the election. I did not vote for Trump. I'm just saying. I'm not going to say who I voted for. It was not her and not him. So, miss me with that. Because she's pro-censorship. And I feel like a lot of people forgot that because it was, when she was all about that, it was about video games. And we all know video games tend to not be seen as art. But still, it's, even if you don't consider video games art, they do fall under freedom of expression. And we do have the right to express violence and all that kind of stuff without being seen as advocating it. And we can do so with literally everything else, literally every other subject. I was talking to my mom about this, and she was saying, it's all about how it's presented, which I do agree with, Obviously there would be some things that would be screeds for this sort of thing, for any sort of thing. But then she was like it's only okay to have a neo-Nazi in your fic if they get killed at the end. And it's like, that doesn't always happen in real life. Evil people can get away with their crimes, and reflecting that in fiction, again, is not an endorsement. The idea that there has to be some sort of immediate consequence for horrible behavior. You look up the Hays Code. It was incredibly restrictive. It was an old movie code that predated the MPAA in the United States. It was really restrictive. It dominated movies for so long, and it is one of the reasons that American media is so far behind a lot of the rest of the world, in how it's developed, and diversity even, and a whole bunch of different things. It's very prudish. It's extremely morality based. You couldn't have movies where the bad guy wins. You couldn't have movies with corrupt authority figures. You couldn't have a whole bunch of different kinds of stuff. You couldn't have interracial relationships, which is also funny because one of the other things they said you couldn't have is disrespect to any nationality or race. So I'm not exactly sure how they thought those two things would go together. If you couldn't disrespect any race, but then you couldn't show races mixing, that's pretty much a big contradiction there. There's my foot. But yeah, the Hays Code definitely comes to mind when I see people talking about this. You couldn't even teach sex ed at all. You couldn't use sex for educational purposes, including discussions, without any depiction. Yahtzee Croshaw was talking about how if people didn't test limits, then we wouldn't know where those limits are. And I think even crossing those limits, even when you know where they are, if it is not real, is fine. There are movies that endorse horrible things. They put, think about any movie where humans land on another planet and exterminate all the aliens. That's genocide. And it's usually seen as a good thing in movies like that. Does it mean that they endorse genocide? I don't think so, because they're putting it in the context of fiction. They're telling an entirely fictional story with people who don't exist, with creatures that don't exist, and so on. People need to know the difference themselves. Okay? They shouldn't have to have every bit of morality fed to them. They need to have it in their own heads already. If someone out there is morally bankrupt and gullible to the point where they think that just because they see something in a movie or read it in a story or saw a picture of it, then it must be okay, that person should not be consuming media unsupervised. I just... I've been unfriended and blocked by so many people that I liked, that I trusted, that I thought were good, and they're calling me a predator, and they're calling me a child molester and a pedophile, and it's like, if any of you people want to talk to me in person, or directly anyway, drop me a line in the comments. I'll give you my Skype information. We can set up a time to do so, because I think talking face to face would be the best thing here. I think it'd be much easier to understand that I don't endorse that sort of thing in real life. What I endorse is freedom of speech and freedom of expression. You know, people say freedom of speech should have limitations, then it's not free. It's like, yes, it allows people to spew hate, but it also allows people to counteract that hate, to get the truth out there, to tell people, no, that's wrong, and here's why. When you limit speech, you limit everything. And again, it has never been a one-off. It just baffles me. Telling people that writing something that isn't real is the exact same as a real life crime, and then turning it around and threatening somebody in real life. It just... I can't figure it out. I was supposed to be in a roleplay event this weekend. One of the characters I play is Vicious, or the Iron Mask Marauder from the fourth Pokemon movie. The guy who's literally so brutal, his name is Vicious. And, well, okay, his Japanese name is Vicious. And in English, he's called the Marauder. So, yeah. He's a pretty savage guy. And the event is supposed to be this drug-fueled rave. And it's like, here we are. We're playing people in organized crime, hosting a drug-fueled rave. And hopefully none of us are on drugs, and none of us are on organized crime. Yeah, I really hope so. On organized crime? That is what I said, isn't it? In, hopefully. Or both. But it's like, hopefully everyone here knows the difference. That just because we're presenting this in a story doesn't mean that we endorse it. A few hours later, I got kicked from that Discord. It's like, here, We're playing Team Rocket, a group that's known for animal abuse, and none of us endorse that in real life. But we do it in fiction and even present it as a good thing because that's what our characters do. Our fictional characters who are not real. People are dredging up things I did years ago. People are dredging up something stupid I said literally 14 years ago that I still get harassed for. Just I'm going to list the Twitter thread below because I really think people need to see the actual words I said and just all those papers back there is really distracting, isn't it? I think people really need to see exactly what it is I said, not be misled by rumors, and in general, not spread false information. You cannot prioritize something that isn't real over people's own morality. You cannot tell me that people are devoid of morals and are like fully shaped by something they see in fiction above what they see in reality. They're saying that someone could use it to justify their actions, but that means they already have these predilections. It's like the movie Scream said, movies don't create psychos, they just make psychos more creative. Someone has to already have that predilection. And, they're talking about, how, pedos can use fiction to groom kids. It's like, what else can be used to groom kids? Praise. We don't condemn praise. We don't condemn, we don't blame Hershey for the whole strangers with candy thing. And there's a reason that archetype exists. It's confusing, it's hurtful, and it's utterly, utterly untrue. They've done exactly this. They've played into a fictional version of me, pretended that it's the real thing, and again, they are prioritizing fiction over reality. They refuse to listen to anything I say on the subject because to them, they can just dismiss everything with, "Oh, be gone, predator." I can't do the predator clicking noise. I don't know if that was laughing or what. I just Anyway, though, I mean, you guys know better, right? Both about me and about the concept that just because something is depicted in fiction doesn't mean it's an endorsement of it in real life. And something I've already talked for 24 minutes about. 24 right there. And anyway, I'm gonna put this up on my affected Twitters, and I would really appreciate people going through the actual link of what I really said. And I also want you to look up things like the Hays Code, like degenerate art, and all kinds of stuff like that. Just, look up censorship in art and censorship in literature, in media. A whole bunch of examples that have never meant to reflect any specific morality. Are flights of fantasy things that have never existed. And people just, it blows my mind. Anything further I say would just be repeating myself.